Hey, listen, man, good to be here. Lot happening in the world, man. A lot happening in the world. And yeah, I think Elijah froze also. Jeff, we can.
Amazing.
Yeah, why don't we maybe just kick him off for a second until we make it happen. And I want to talk about a couple things. I had.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I can do that. Go ahead.
All right. No, I have this couple of things that I thought would be really good to talk about, because there's things that I'm thinking about on a regular basis. I'm thinking about it all the time. I put them in the notes up there, but I found this this poster of 50 biases that people have, and I was just thinking I should just start talking about a bunch of them on a fairly regular basis and actually do it in class, because it's really quite useful to help us really understand. And I don't know. I mean, I think I talk about this a lot. Elijah, I think you can give me like kind of a maybe confirm, but
give a direct experience or my relationship to some of these biases.
Yeah, like how I'm trying to see how they operate in my own life on a day-to-day basis. And I'm constantly thinking, like I'm constantly trying to like keep things in check, keep my own thinking in check. Laurie certainly knows, man. Laurie and I, just a little bit ago, we had this conversation about our thinking, and we're constantly trying to kind of see what the blind spots that we have and what we're missing, and really having the courage. And it takes courage, but it's the intellect, but there's also sort of a certain courage, maybe that's not the right word, but to be able to say that we are wrong or have been wrong in thinking a certain way. And
yeah, for sure.
It's hard, man, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it feels so vulnerable to be wrong.
Oh my God, it's so vulnerable.
Yeah.
Especially imagine being me, this like kind of more of a public person who's been teaching for 42 years, very much a public figure, on record for saying certain things, and then like having to say like, I'm wrong about that.
And a professor's job is to be right.
Yeah.
Like their inherent role is to be the expert.
Yeah, I know, man. It's so
makes sense. But
yeah. So
you're redefining that.
Yeah, really, in so many ways, right? And so like I think that sometimes I push too hard that some people tell me that I push too hard that I'm not an expert, but I feel like I have to push it really hard, to say that, I would call myself a knucklehead a lot. Well, that part of that it's helpful for me, there's a playfulness that has to happen in my own mind in order for me to be able to do what I do. And so, when I call myself a knucklehead or something, that's for my own internal spiritual foundation,
Right. To be able to go through the moments of like swallowing pride or like not having to be an expert in this moment, or to have I see what you're saying. I was gonna say blank slate perspective, like the facilitator's mind, how like you're leading with curiosity and
So I get that from you guys. I get that from your work with Laurie, all of you at World in Conversation, right? Because if I go into a conversation with students, I'm interviewing students, I'm talking to them. If I go into it with the idea that there's some answer to that I want to hear from them, then I miss the opportunity. It's not an authentic conversation, because I'm like kind of putting breadcrumbs out there and leading them along. And yet I intuitively know when something is more or less interesting, right? A certain conversation, when they say something that either I haven't heard before, or it's just kind of surprising. And sometimes you notice in class, like yesterday happened, somebody was I think it was the Korean woman, Luna, was saying something, and I went, whoa, hang on. I didn't expect her to say what she said. Yeah.
And that, and in that moment, like you not expecting that, that took you to a different pathway, like, or what happened in that moment, like with that surprise?
Well, in the moment, I learned something. I forget what it was, but I learned something, and I went, oh, whoa, okay. So then in my mind, she continued talking, but in my mind, I was reorganizing a couple of things because I knew what she said was on point, or I knew I had to explore it, right? Because of just the work that I do in Korea and the way I think about a lot of things. So it was really valuable. It's quite, but it's hard, man. There is a vulnerability, and that again, it's easier for me to do that than probably most people, because pretty early on in my academic life, I knew I was not the smartest, the sharpest pencil in the box of all my grad school colleagues, so to speak. So it makes it really easy just to be so clear that, yeah, you're not nearly as bright as those folks are, sharp and quick thinking and so on. So I knew I was never going to get to the top of the mountain. So don't worry.
I remember a conversation that you had with somebody once, and you mentioned one of the first times that you ever were invited to do a speech. It was on stage with Cornell West. And at that moment, you were like, okay, now I know where I am in this world of public speaking.
Oh my God. I went Cornell West, man. Talk about a mind. So you can disagree. First off, Cornell West is all over the place. So if you're conservative, half of Cornell West, you love. If you're liberal, half you love. It doesn't matter. He's all over the place, but his mind is unbelievable. I was I just turned 24. I was a graduate student. I wrote an abstract for a conference. It was in University of Northern Iowa, and I got accepted. It was a conference on Marxism and religion, and I was studying theory. And so I had this approach of sort of understanding or analyzing what Marx would say about religion, but it was the approach of, like a 24-year-old graduate student. But at the time I thought, wow, I got this paper accepted at this conference, so I wrote the paper, and I go to the conference, and I didn't know how conferences work. I had never been to one, but there were, all these academics there, people from all over the place, lots of people. And I read my paper, right? I was on this, I was on a group. There was 3 of us presenting papers on this session that I was doing. And one was Cornell West. Now I knew his name at the time, but this was 40 years ago, right?
Was he a graduate student at the time too?
No, he had graduated, but he wasn't that much older than me. He's maybe 10 years older than me. Anyway, maybe he's older, I don't know. But anyway, so I read my paper, everybody's falling asleep in the audience, right? It was just like, oh God. He starts talking. He does his paper, which is not a paper. It's just him doing what he does. And he doesn't use notes for anything. His brain, he just like downloads files in his brain and he just goes, right? And anyway, if you watch him up close, you can just see the smoke coming out of his ears, because it's just like boom. He's just one of those people, right? So anyway, wow, man, I just sort of slunk back in my chair like this. And then I said, okay, so as for public speaking, I will never be able to do what he just did. Okay. As for thinking, and the way he just put ideas together out of nowhere, I will never be able to do what he just did. So there's a lot of those experiences like that. So, it's pretty cool.
Like in that moment, you were like, there's levels to this.
Yeah. There are levels to this. And I am at the bottom level. Yeah. I'll just hope to get up a couple steps.
It's so interesting because like what you've grown is also so profound, you know? So it's just like, I wonder
Yeah.
how, like where you're at now, how you reflect on, well, my intelligence doesn't have to be the same as Cornell West to invoke like the same learning or, you know,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's not intelligence, right?
or yeah, whatever.
Yeah. It's like it's like it's a mind. It's watching the flexibility of somebody's mind and watching them go places. And so, you don't have to. There are lots of people. I watch them, and I don't. It doesn't matter where they're at ideologically or whatever. With the things that they're saying, sometimes you just watch them go. Well, Charlie Kirk is one of those people, right? I said it last night or last week in the stream. This guy, he was a professional. He just became a professional debater. And when you watch debate, it's like watching Gary the Willard Preacher. And I know I mentioned him in class last week, but every university has some kind of preacher, a Christian preacher. Not everyone, but probably most everyone, at least back in the 60s and 70s and 80s. That will just stand on the corner or the steps of somewhere at the university, and then they just preach. They got their Bible in their hand and they go, right? So we have this guy, Gary Cattell is his name. Been there as long as I've been there, and he's getting ready to retire. But he's supported by there are a group of people that support him. They pay his wages. That's his profession. That's his job.
But it's not the university, or is it the university?
Oh, not at all. But
that
he
supports,
that's his space, and people pay for him to show up 7 hours a day or whatever it is, and just talk, preach, and then debate students. And he's gotten really good at it. Well, that's like Charlie Kirk. You get really good at it, man. You just can't. And you just watch, someone will ask Gary a question or Charlie or people like this, right? They ask them a question. You just don't know where their brain's going to go, man. And then it goes, and then it goes here and it goes here. And when you do it every day, you just, obviously there's certain grooves that you get. Not me though. Like I don't have any grooves. I don't because I don't do it often enough. So, for me, I have to, when someone asks a question, I'm starting from scratch all the time, but so anyways.
Yeah. Just like you're speaking to like this, like certain connections that are forming, like over time, like the more you practice, like I'm not sure what exact synapses like you've created by being up on stage in front of 800 people for who knows how long, being able to work with the mind of young students and allowing them to express their sociological address, without any, and being able to nurture it in a way that it turns into education and not like gotcha moments, and managing the tone of a group, of a whole, managing the tone, like tone is so much, to being able to form trust and, and rapport, and to do that with 800 students, to be like bought in,
people watching, and
focused.
then people watching the stream is more, Well, one thing that people sometimes don't see is like I'll turn my mic off, and I might say to people like, "Hey, you guys, you're doing a great job," or something, right? I'll reach over and I'll say in someone's ear like, "Hey, you're doing a good job, man." Like I'll know. Maybe they're nervous. I can tell they're a little nervous, and then I just want to be like, "Hey, no."
Yeah. It's like I just immediately thought of like social work. I don't know, because you're just like managing the human up front, and just managing their emotion. Like but you're managing you're helping support and guide how they feel. Wow, and that.
And I want it needs to be a good experience for them. And when you're, if you're watching, you want to know it's a good experience for people.
Yeah.
And yesterday before class, or as we started class, I did another reminder to people to say, listen, y'all, these are 20-year-olds, right? So one of the biases that we have, one of the biases is out in the world, is it's very difficult for people to remember how they thought about things in their childhood or when they were younger. It's much easier to remember how we felt in certain spaces. But it's much more difficult to remember how we thought. And so a lot of people will watch watch class, and I mean, people comment on students, and almost always, not almost, well, people comment, and very often, it's like, oh yeah, I really like what that student said, or I think it's really great, and so on. But too often, people will critique people from the tone of, oh, I wouldn't have said that. It's like, no, you wouldn't say that now, but you got to go back. Someone who's my age or something, you got to go back 40 or 45 years, my friend. You are not who you are today. Yeah.
So it's kind of like how like people will also like branch off, I think, and they'll say, oh, like I've seen this, like, oh, this is what this is how university is shaping these young minds to think this way, instead is it more so like this is how university is holding the development of these young minds, instead of
that's a good distinction there. Yeah. It's holding the development of the young minds. Yeah. And by the way, the young minds, people will have this idea that, students are so vulnerable or whatever. I'm like, come on. I say this all the time. Look, man, they really are not that vulnerable.
What do you think they mean by vulnerable?
Well, they feel like that students are like sponges, and they're just sponging up ideas, and so that we have this power to shape them in one way or the other. And I don't deny that we're the professoriate, for example, at a university is very important, just like grade school, high school teachers. Although I gotta say, probably the teacher that probably has the greatest importance to people, I have nothing to back this up, this is just a gut feeling, is whoever you have in kindergarten. When you go off to the big school, because preschool is not school. School is school, and kindergarten is school. So maybe kindergarten and first grade. Those teachers are the most important that any of us have. I have nothing to back that up.
But you're just saying how malleable, because isn't it in development? I'm pretty sure there's certain moments where plasticity is like in hyperdrive, and I think that might be one of those moments in development.
It might be. Yeah. If I talk to like a developmental psychologist, I'd be curious to see what they say. But for me, it's much more. I'm not thinking at that level. But again, that maybe there's something going on there. I'm just really thinking about, well, you show up at this place with these strangers, in the stranger authority figure that's so very important, and it's school. School is school. It's like, oh, I'm going to school. And you've got this teacher, and the teacher has just so much power to move that positively or negatively, and then really begin to shape in these some non-conscious ways. The way we think.
And then also,
but ironically, no. Go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna say, to the point that you were making, is that like the professors will like have the power to shape them in certain ways, and also like have the power of what they share based on how much they feel like they're prepared for. Like you're saying that students are more prepared for things than what people think that they're prepared for, based on how vulnerable or not that they are.
I think I could say that. Yep. And I would say that by the time you get to college, unfortunately, and this is a negative byproduct of the education system, probably, is that so much energy goes into getting the right answer because you want to get the right grade, that what's truly on the table and what's truly up for discussion and debate and conversation and so on doesn't always sink in at the level that a lot of us might imagine that it does, because what sinks in is like, I get that, just get, whatever, just give me the answer, because I need to kick it back on the exam. I got to make sure I get an A.
Right.
Now, I don't, and for me, that's a little different, because students don't, when they're sitting in that room, there's nothing that they're not taking notes or anything, because it's not, they don't have to know any of that. They don't have to remember anything for the exam, but so they just have to think.
Right. And so, because you're saying what's sinking in for them is like the need to like what's standard or the norm is performance is like what's
Yeah,
sinking into
performance.
them is
That's
like
right. Not integration, not integration, just perform. And no,
right.
that doesn't mean that certain ideas don't stick with people. You know, like the universities have just very clearly over the past, 30, 40 years have very clearly embraced a wide ranging social justice perspective that following, young people who kind of come of age in their teenage years and early 20s and who discover the world and discover a lot of the inequality or injustices in the world and feel, they're young enough to say like, hey, well, let's put a stop to this nonsense, and so we're following them in this way of saying, all right, well, let's teach about it and let's talk about all this stuff that's going on around the world that, we should fix, and humans should just be better than what we are, and so
yeah,
clearly universities have spent more time kind of holding that up for students to sort of get behind and work through and think about than to question whether, I don't know, you could do anything about it anyway, or what's the best way to do something about all these things, so there's no question about that, right?
What are you, so you're saying like universities upholding like a certain ethic, like for
an ethic that has been built more around the social justice model, which is
which is more so
our job. Look, we are these liberal institutions, and by liberal institutions, I mean not liberal. I mean it's liberal education. It's like let's build up each individual so that individual can pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in the best way that person possibly can. And of course, that also means don't step on the shoes of anybody else in the meantime, right? And yeah.
What's the opposite of that?
Well,
like this liberal education, and then like what's the other side?
Well, in the West, there is no other side to that. I mean, that is like, we have built an entire see, this is a use of the word liberal. People don't, this isn't political liberal. This is,
like philosophy.
Is philosophical. This is the empowerment of the individual, right? So you really want to build every student has infinite possibility, and you want to do what you can do to build up each student. Well, so one of the issues, of course, is that, well, if we're spending so much time trying to build up each student, right? That means we're going to have to spend an inordinate, more time helping to do the things we need to do, or give things to those students who don't have the opportunities that other students have. And so therefore a great amount of focus then is on the students who didn't have whatever they needed to be able to move forward for themselves and be the best person they can be. And, and just those opportunities, like this student yesterday who volunteered, who, has gone to these, went to a boarding school in Switzerland. It's like, dude, come on, man, boarding school in Switzerland. Like you understand, like that's an opportunity there. And there's another person in that class who will probably volunteer later, who grew up on and off welfare, and on and off a parent who's very disabled, and just the fact that the obstacles that person had to go through to get to Penn State, and then so now you got so the boarding school, but she deserves. She's just a liberal education. We want to support her and want her to be the best person she can be. So she's going to move forward with all of the resources that she brings, which includes all of her past experiences, and that's a good thing. But then you got this other student here who absolutely, it's like, whoa, you're not in the same world at all with this other student, but you've overcome, you've like these challenges, and like, okay, so what do we do with that student, right? So now the social justice model says, hey, you got this person that grew up, dealing with homelessness and this, wow, she's, but why don't we got to give some things to her. Now, nobody would say that's a bad idea. There's nobody in the world that would say that's a bad idea, because it's like, you're amazing, and here you are at Penn State, and she's pretty thoughtful and quite smart, and like, okay.
Yeah.
But the problem is, you're going to do that for a whole population of people, and then you got to say she's easy because she's really grew up with so little and yet overcame so many things, right? So her inner drive is, but now it's a slippery slope. So start coming up. It's like, okay, we got her, but then what about the next one? When do you stop and say, okay, that's too much?
Why for those that are questioning it, why would they be thinking like that's too much, or like where does it stop? Or like what are they saying the consequence?
Yeah, because so what you do at a place like Penn State is we have all these programs in place to say like, okay, hey, we got this program for first generation college students, okay? Because we know that if you grew up with parents who didn't go to college, you and I see this, I will absolutely 100%.
That was me. So.
Okay, it's not me. My older brother went to college, but beyond him, people in my family didn't go to college. So
pretty much first generation.
Okay. Yep. Okay. So we have these programs, first generation kids, and we know that first generation kids, they're at risk.
They have a lack of understanding of
you don't know how to navigate the system. When you hit a wall, you don't understand. Hey, like I just sent an email, a text message to this there's this Korean young man who I have mentored for the past couple of years. He's from Korea, but he's in his first year at University of Wisconsin. And he's saying, and he sends me this email, like, oh man, or this message on CalTalk. I'm really struggling in my English class, right? And I'm like, wait, I'm doing great, but my English class is so hard. And I say, well, hang on, man. Is that the intro grammar class that every student at UW has to take? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, bro, man, you and a third of your classmates are struggling in that class. And you probably got a TA who just loves to sing your papers back to you going like, this is bullshit,
Right.
Using like an entire, back in the day, we used to joke about how they would go through boxes of red pens. You know what I mean?
I like mark it all up.
Yeah, mark it all up. So I'm like, hey, listen, man, you're fine. You're fine. It's going to be hard for you. English obviously is your second language, and a lot of people are struggling. So don't worry. So he has me telling him, and then he writes back, and he texts back to messages back, and he's like, thank you for saying that. It's so important for that.
Yeah.
So now let's go to you, and you're struggling with your English 15 class at Penn State, and you're like, and like, who are you going to talk to? Like, who do you talk to?
I had, I wanted to comment on what you were saying, because it almost sounds like you're like relieving that student in particular with like, I don't know, some form of like stereotype threat.
Yeah,
like
that's
the idea that this is my identity, and because this is my identity, therefore I'll be either more or less depending on whatever my stereotype is.
Exactly. And I'm an international student. It's English. I'm from Korea, so Korea, China. It's like, okay, so already if it was math, it would be different, but
right. Yeah. And so you're like relieving him, like, actually you're not the only person that is experienced, like you're not alone in this, and it's actually very normal to like go through this struggle. And it's like brings them back to baseline.
Dude, exactly. And then I say, hey, just keep working at it. But I don't have to say that, because this kid's such a hard worker. I don't even have to say, hey, get back in there and you can do it, because I know he is. So
Right.
okay, so now here
Yeah.
we go. You got a place like a Penn State or some other university. It's like, okay, well, we need to have this program for, let's have this program for people who are first generation college kids. Okay. All right. Cool. Let's have a program for kids who are going through, this issue over here.
Right.
And then this issue over here. And then, we got this other thing. So we have these programs for international students. So we need to have a place where they can go on campus and, they can feel a kind of sense of home. What about
the PRCC?
Students? What about Latino students? Then you have all Asian students. And so we're going to work on this, right? What about, centers for, counseling and mental health, and like, okay, what about gay and lesbian students? So we need a center for gay and lesbian students because you're off, you're coming out, so you've got all these things and all these places where you're investing resources, and then we say, wait, what about the student who went to boarding school? Like, she might need something too. Like, oh yeah, we forgot about her. Okay, so you see, so the critique would be, wait, universities shouldn't be involved in these things, but that's one critique, right? But universities say, yeah, but you don't understand what it costs, and ultimately what it costs taxpayers when students start a university program and they drop out in their first year, their first semester or their first year or their second year or whatever. Like, you don't want that. You want. We need more support. It's not just about going to classes. It's so much more, man. Students are away from home for the first time. It is so difficult. So,
is this like?
Go ahead, man.
I don't know if I'm going to take you in a different direction. Do you want to finish your thought?
I
guess
the idea going.
Go ahead.
Finish up the this way of creating the environment so all individuals can reach their maximum capacity. Right. What has happened indirectly when that happens, it's like we're spending so much energy talking to a specific group of students that it can sometimes sound like the messaging is just to the students who are less privileged, again, whatever that is, because I don't know, just because you went to boarding school, okay, you're privileged in one way, but that doesn't mean you're privileged in all these other ways. So like, who am I to decide that? Well, we've decided that at some level, people do make decisions. And so, so what happens is that once we create those kind of conditions, the optics, it can look really unfavorable to people who would seem like, it could look to people in the majority groups, right? To men, to straight people, to people without disabilities, to white people, all of those that
came from a standard socioeconomic environment, like a privileged or the boarding school.
Yeah, so we're not. So we don't do anything for them. We're only working with all these other people who are here, which is not the case, except to a degree. It can be in certain ways, right? I can't even because unless you're at a university, you really don't understand those things. Like, you really have to. You gotta be here. You gotta be inside of it. You have to see it.
Is this where, like, because I've heard before how people talk about university as if like, oh, this is where like universities are for a certain ideology, and like the right says like universities are for this ideology, like and then it's like, well, it's not that university. It sounds like what I'm hearing is like, well, it's not that universities are essentially for a certain ideology, but their inherent goal or like what their inherent need to nurture is students and the variability of students, and so that just needs to be supported. And but because that's inherent to university, because you need to support students, and then like other groups or like those that maybe sit on like some other political side, like from the right, are like, oh, you're supporting ideology, and they're like, well, we're not supporting ideology, we're just inherently need to support students, which I don't know. Do you see what I'm...
Listen, but it's not the right. It's not just the right, but nonetheless, No, but we also are supporting certain ideology. There is a way in which we're supporting a certain ideology, but at the same time, once you're in it, it's not as clear as we imagine that it is, right? So, for example, I don't have an example. I don't want to keep going.
I guess maybe I don't know. Yeah,
it does happen. It does happen, but it's not. It's not exactly how a lot of folks imagine it to be. Just
like the snowflake idea, like the snowflake idea of like young people and like snowflakes coming out of university or something. And it's because like university is just like bending to the will of students or something. I don't know. I'm having stuff that I feel like I've heard before.
Yeah, well, you also have that, and that snowflake that students are soft, which you talked about in class yesterday, and that students are
or entitled.
They're fragile.
Or fragile.
Yeah. So, like, for example, I remember I was thinking about this today because I scheduled my exam for next Tuesday, and it's the second day of Rosh Hashanah. So it's
What's that?
That's the Jewish New Year. It's really, really important, right? Rosh Hashanah, right? So, and so anyway, so I do this, and I say like, oh man, so here.
Oh, I feel like you're going and are you thinking multiple things right now?
Yeah. I'm thinking multiple things. I'm thinking like,
I could see that.
Yeah. So anyway, I was thinking, all right, so what is this, right? And what am I going to do? Well, I made a mistake because Penn State sends out this email and said, listen, here are the main holidays for all the major religious groups. First off, we have one for all religious holidays, and every single day of the year is something, right? It's like it's the feast of the whatever. These are the orange feast, and like Brazil, like there it is, right? Northeastern Brazil, and it's like oh god, which is really fun actually for me as a sociologist to see.
I bet.
But they send the main ones out, right, for main students. So, Hindu students, Muslim students, Jewish students, and Christian students, right?
Right.
Well, I usually look at it, and I didn't look at it. And so the quiz is on the second day of Rosh Hashanah, right? Well, if observant, that's an important day. You're going to want to be with your family. You don't do anything on that day. It is just like it's a day. It'd be like Christmas Day to Christians. It's
right.
Like, hey, here we go. We have an exam on Christmas Day, Christians. So
like what?
The fuck? So anyway, exam and talk to this kid after I'm observant, and like what are you doing? I'm like, dude, don't worry about it. Talk to Julie. We'll just see. We'll figure it out. You take it when you want to take it. Like not a problem.
Yeah.
But I remember the reason I'm bringing this up because I remember there were a few years ago and I did the same thing. It was about 7 years ago, and I get this email from a woman who's one of the advisors for Hillel, I think it was, the Jewish organizations, and she sent me this email saying like, "Hey, you're having your exam during Rosh Hashanah." It was probably 10 or 12 years ago. I don't know. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I am. Okay, well, it's not a problem. The student will just be able to take it whenever they want to take it. It's not a problem. Yep. And she writes back like, that's completely unacceptable because this student doesn't want to be separated from their peers. They don't want to be singled out. It's going to make them feel like they're somehow whatever, less than or something, whatever it was. I forget she said it. And I didn't write back, but in my mind, I'm like, listen, man, this student, whoever it is, they're not a snowflake. Okay. I guarantee they're not feeling that. It was a guy, right? I knew who he was too. I'm like, I guarantee he's not feeling that at all. This is you. And you're trying to like, ping me and project your stuff onto me. And trust me, they're not a snowflake. They're okay. Right.
Yeah. And
we just take stuff too far, right? And it's like
right.
But
almost like trying to.
But there would be some student who would feel that way, but I wasn't this student, and probably wasn't more than maybe 1 out of 100 Jewish students who would feel like, oh my God, I feel slighted because I don't get to take the exam with my classmates, right?
Yeah. And I guess it's like the line of like, how much is university supposed to nurture and be a bubble, and like,
yeah,
because what it's compared, because they're going out into the real world, and so how often are those accommodations made?
Yeah.
In the real world.
Yeah, like how many people, how many places where you work or you do whatever that are just like, okay, it's Rosh Hashanah. Okay, great. But I would be. I mean, I understand that stuff, and a lot of people would be. But in these two instances, I just happen to make a mistake and like, I forgot to look.
Not to say that like not to say that you're doing it without care. Like there's awareness of that. It's Rosh Hashanah, but like there's like life. The real world has an agenda, has a schedule, has a like.
Yeah. Well, listen, you go to Israel, man, and it's like, Sunday's a work day. You know what I mean? As in Muslim countries, Sunday's a work day. And I remember my first time in Israel, kind of following the schedule. Well, I'm not a Christian, so it doesn't really matter. But I mean, I'm baptized as a Christian.
Yeah.
And I'm still, I guess, probably considered a member of the United Methodist Church. But I'm not practicing, so to speak. Well, I don't know what it means to be a practicing Christian. But,
That's a question. That's a question for sure.
That's a good question. Yeah, because there are a lot of practicing Christians, people who claim to be practicing Christians. So I'm just like, dude, what is that?
It feels like,
that's what it means. Then I got you beat, man. That's what it means to be a practicing Muslim. I'm like, okay, I'm way ahead of that.
Right, like it's so subjective, or people bend so many things. Like with their ways of living. Yeah.
So anyway, that's so I don't know, how did we start? Oh, we started with biases. I don't know how we got to all this. All right, so you got these biases.
So the bias number one was judging younger people, or biases that students are vulnerable. Like the first bias was audiences that will judge younger people for their perspectives.
Right.
And then getting to the
who think that they would not have thought in those ways. I was much smarter than that. Like my childhood was way tougher, like it's like when people say the joke being that, I walked to school and the snow was up to my waist. Yeah, because you're remembering kindergarten and the snow was 1 foot high once.
And it was actually shoveled.
Yeah. It was only up to your waist when you walked off the sidewalk. But anyway, that's like, or like, I went back to my hometown and last summer we were back, I guess, or summer before last.
In Toledo?
Yeah, in Toledo. And I went, we often go, or we sometimes go to my old neighborhood, and I remember driving from my house to the school where I walked every day, to and from 2 times a day, because I went home.
High school or elementary school?
Kindergarten to 8th grade. And by the way, my first day of kindergarten, I walked to school with my brother, but he quickly abandoned me. But there was, we all knew where we were going, right? As kids, failings of kids. Anyway, so I walked, or I drove this, and in my mind, it was so much further than it was.
Yeah.
It's like, well, it really isn't that far,
It's like a quarter mile in your head. It was like a mile, 2 miles.
It was about a quarter mile, and it was about more like a half mile in my head. So we do that, right? So that's anyway, going back to my class, that's always a pet peeve for me, because as I told somebody, it's like, look, man, this is it's just pure generosity to get to listen to people who are willing to say what they think. And it's not that they're snowflakes. My students are quite resilient, and the 119. So you work with them every day, right? They're quite resilient. They can you can like make a comment about them and be like, okay, that was a really stupid thing to say that you said there. Like, that's not a problem. They can handle that. They'll probably come back at you. That's not what it is. But it's when you just unnecessarily attack.
Right.
And with this kind of grandiosity or like holier than thou or smarter than thou perspective, it's like, man, you want to like, I could go in the ring with some people sometimes, man.
Yeah.
I mean, that part of me, that young man part of me that wants to put the gloves on comes out, and I'm like, yo, man.
Like, don't mess with my students.
Yeah.
Right.
And then what it is really that, hey, they're doing us all a favor here. So don't. Come on, man.
Yeah. Like, you wouldn't be getting this lived experience. You know what I mean? Like, you're tapping into the wisdom of the younger generation.
Yeah.
That's still developing and learning.
Thoughtful ideas. If you want unthoughtful ideas, well, just read social media. You'll get that. But that's not
read the Instagram comments. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I don't.
Crazy.
It's like, dude. I never read. That's why I don't read comments at all about me. I just absolutely don't read comments, and I don't. And people.
Joe Rogan does the same thing.
Yeah, I can't really read. Once in a while, I open an email, and if anybody who's watching the stream, if you say like, "Yeah, I sent Sam an email and he didn't respond," it's like it's not. It's so difficult. I have so many things, and like it's really hard. The best thing to do, what is to send Julie an email at our staff at social19.org email
and have her comment back.
No. Julie will, if there's something that I really need to read, she'll forward it to me, and because people send stuff to my personal email, which is fine.
Right.
It's good. I mean, but I can't get to, so many emails come in about things, and like right now, I'm writing 4 different talks that I'm going to be giving when we go to Korea next month.
Oh, let's go. Right. It's a lot.
It's 4 different talks. And we're doing a television, we're doing stuff like, I'm trying to just hold my life together and plan class and everything else. So anyway, the best thing to do is
what's that one going to be on? Like on agriculture and archaeology?
Yeah. No, physics. We did astrophysics last time, so this time it'll be on engineering of the engineering of wheel bearings, right, in automobiles.
Man, you're expert.
Anyway, send Julie an email. Send it to her and be like, "Hey, listen," and Julie will read it. Because she reads everything. And when something comes along, she'll text me and be like, "I'm going to send you an email. You really need to make sure you read this one." And I'll be like, "Okay." Right. Yeah. Which is nice. Yeah.
What I was thinking about when you were talking about people or those that are older probably than students, made me want to ask the question on, like, I don't know, the sociology of elders. I don't know, or like, because the idea of to like respect your elders and where that bias comes from, and like I wonder what's the reverse of that, for how our elders supposed to treat our youth? Because it sounds like you're saying like so many. Yeah,
well, bro, you just gave me. That's a cool idea for a class, man. Respect, and it's just call it respect your elders. Some different cultures see that in very different ways. And
I would love to know that. That's so fascinating.
Same here, man. Same here. Okay, we're gonna do a class on that. Yeah, that's
gonna be dope. Let's go.
Like, kind of like yesterday, class with some students from around the world, and because it's so interesting, man. I mean, there are just some cultures where you just gonna respect your elders to the bitter end. Doesn't matter what they do, how they do it. You would just absolutely.
And what does that do to an elder? Like, because how they're commenting on the youth, like how you're saying, like judging the youth, like how, like, because of like I'm an elder now, so that means I have this opinion that's like you were saying, holier than thou.
Yeah,
I don't know what it's making me think about.
right. Maybe if I lived in a world where elders got an immense amount of respect, maybe then I would be think before I speak to say, oh wait, I'm getting respect from these young people. I need to give respect to them because I'm really helping to grow them. And
Ooh,
yeah,
that's so interesting.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
Because don't elders say, or some people that are older, like, oh man, kids nowadays, they don't respect your elders. And is it like creating a disdain towards the youth?
Yeah,
because of like
anyone who doesn't respect me, like
yeah.
Listen,
But
all I'm saying
elders-
is we need to bring back Will Smith's song "Parents Just Don't Understand." That needs to be the foundation going forward. No more older generations telling younger generations, no. Younger generations tell your parents they just don't understand.
Yeah.
All right, we need to make that the theme song
Yeah, right. Yeah. We'll
for
use
the
that.
class. But like,
I was thinking in Korea, for example, historically speaking, the people who were almost like kind of like allowed to have, and I don't know how to the degree to which this was really key, but you have to earn having gray hair, right? And
interesting.
yeah, you have to earn that, and you earn it by having wisdom and being kind of a wise elder, right?
Right.
And so
So is that, when they say earn, like as in if you have reached some type of like in your development of age, if you reach this type of wisdom or whatever, that you'll naturally start to get gray hair?
No.
And
No.
or is it
when you start to get gray hair, do you color it? Do you get the gray out of it, or do you just let it go gray?
Oh, okay.
If you to just let it go gray, you have to earn that. It's an honor to have gray hair,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
So
That's so cool.
So therefore, everybody's dyeing their hair. The history is. I mean, it's like it's almost like now. I don't know. I have to talk about this in Korea because I've talked about it with quite a number of people and I've read about it, but it's not inherently true now, but historically it has been.
Right.
So therefore, you got to dye your hair because you haven't earned that, right?
Right.
And so,
it's like, what's the remnants of that in the modern day?
That listen, man, every salon has hair dyeing. And you go to every men's salon, barber, whatever, you get your haircut, you dye your hair. Haircut, dye your hair.
Wow.
You just do. That's just part of it. And you just that's the nature. I don't, but I've learned elder status in Korea because I'm a professor and I'm like that's how I entered Korean culture is as a professor, the American professor, right? So I've earned that in a way, right? So I wouldn't.
So that still exists, like that idea that
I don't think
is that remnant.
I think the dyeing the hair thing has just become part of the culture now,
right? Because of aesthetic and beauty. It's morphed to beauty and aesthetic rather than like this.
Or you just do it. Like so many men, friends of mine, they just dye their hair. It's not even. They don't even think about it. It's not even something. You
contemplate. Just an expectation.
Yeah, you just do. You dye your hair, and that's the end of it.
Right.
So,
right.
But because it's so much part of it. It's like breathing. You just grow up. With it. But again, I really want to. I will explore this much more. Yeah.
Well, it's so interesting because it made me wonder, like, if you're an elder that has like dyed hair, does that mean you gain less, like you get less respect because you're not the wise gray hair elder?
I don't think it's.
I was like wondering. I don't know.
I don't think it's that direct.
I'm thinking too explicit.
Yeah, nobody's sort of walking around saying.
You get respect. You don't get respect.
You can stop dyeing your hair now because whatever. Right? I don't think
you've earned the black belt, kind of.
Yeah, but it's pretty cool, right? To think that there is a way in which, it's just I don't know. It's cool. Like it's a real name, but but respect of elders is so important, man. In that culture, right? And taking care of elders, and so it doesn't mean that it always happens, right? But
right. And would you say like that's due like evolutionarily, right? Like the elders, before we had like all this information, it was like the elders were the one with all the information. Like
they were the ones holding the information. But at the same time, remember, for most of human history, people died fairly young. So the elder would be someone in their 40s and maybe 50s and 60s, and once in a while you get the 70s, 80s, and 90s, right? But really, people. Hang on, I gotta feed my blue jay friends.
Let's go. Yeah, you gotta feed them,
dude. They start walking and they get annoyed at me.
Yeah, they're like, man, like you had a podcast, but I'm hungry.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
They can just join.
I wish I could see them. I wish I could see the Blue Jays right now. We would love to see them, but you probably can't turn your camera to that.
I can't. But I'll set it up sometime. I'll put a camera. I'll put another camera out here. Called it.
Yeah, you can see the view.
We'll always have it in the
my
corner.
Window's open, so they hear me in here. So.
They're like saying.
We're about an hour in, and we have a lot of questions from last class, and we have a lot of questions, really good questions from the live chat today. Do you want to switch over to that? It's on the same PowerPoint as last time. I'm starting at slide number 16, Elijah. I think it's on Slack for you as well. But if you just pull up the live stream chat or the live stream, you'll be able to see it there too. So for class number 7, oh, sorry, that's the wrong title for the class. We're going to do class number 6 at a later time. But class number 7 what was the title of that one? The one that happened literally yesterday.
Okay, wait, hang on. I have to open this. Is this class 5, the welfare state? So we're looking at 16.
Yeah, class 16, which should be called 750,000. My bad for the spelling thing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I got it. Class 7. What happens next? Yep. All right, go ahead.
Again, it's class number 7 is the 750,000. I messed up and put the wrong title for it, but
no, I got you. So is there a taboo on accepting beliefs from outside your own culture? And man, no. Well, I think there's an in-group out-group idea. I don't know if it's a taboo per se, but with certain cultures there is, and it depends on what the beliefs are. But for sure, there's people, historically speaking, have lived in this in-group out-group world, or we have seen the world, and so therefore, there definitely is some kind of taboo.
And you're saying like based on their beliefs and like in terms of like what are the narratives about other groups?
Yep. And because look, historically, it's like, it's what I just said, right? People can live long lives, and life is very, very tenuous and subject to so many chance things that can happen that can really take a group or a people down. And so, you need as much in-group identification as you can possibly have, and that means you got to have a fairly strong belief system, so that everyone continues to do the things that they need to do. And when that belief system starts to break down, it's like when when things like the kibbutzim and like in Israel, we have like sort of intentional communities like that. They break down when too many alternative ideas enter the community. So you can't have that. So that's a taboo. Yeah.
Right.
All right. That's a cool question. All right, man. Next question. Is that Jeff? Yeah. How would you do things different or the same as your family or community for your potential how would you do things differently or the same as your family or community for your potential children? Oh, man, that's actually a really good question. Man, I think everybody, so here's my answer to this question. Everybody would have a long list of things that they would do differently. And everybody has some things that they would do the same. For some people, for probably most people, if I had to guess, the different list would be much larger than the same list. But the fact is that probably most people will end up doing things very much the same as what they experienced. I think we see that sociologically in families. Surprisingly so. It's very strange. Not strange, but I think surprisingly so. That's actually kind of a cool question. All right, man. Jacob asks, 750,000 years across 73 million children means kidnapping every 3.75 days. Right? Seen it as kidnapping occur twice a week. And hang on, I don't think that. 750,000 every child is seen as kidnapping occurring twice a week. It'll change your view about how rare it is. I have to look at what that number is. You have to say. I don't think it's. Listen, I think we have to shift these numbers. We know that there's about 100. So I'm going to respond to Jacob. There's about 100 kidnappings a year by stranger kidnappings in the United States. About 100, right? So
100 kidnappings a year in the United States.
Right. Yeah, that would be about right. Yeah.
What's the?
No, it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't change my thinking. Actually, it's still quite rare, and it's surprising that it's. First off, given how afraid people are of strangers and stranger kidnappings and these kinds of things, especially as their children are concerned. Given how fearful we are, it doesn't. The level of fear doesn't match with the level of possibility. For me, it would not. When I think about the entirety of the United States, if I had a child, my child would be playing outside all the time, unsupervised. I wouldn't have any problem with that. I would simply run the numbers and not have a problem with that. Yeah. So no, it doesn't change. Meister Yoda. Let's go to that one. Do you know where racism comes from? How social structure is built and begins? So, man, these are like really amazing questions. Yeah, I think racism comes. Here's the origin, as far as I can assess. It started. People started. We've always had differences. So, Elijah, I think you and I have talked about this.
I think so.
There are always differences between people that we notice and we identify. And that's the nature of things. And the vast majority of differences over history have not been based on our physical appearances, but been based on cultural differences, right? So language or how people dress or different things like that. Because for most of human life, we didn't encounter people who were very physically different from us, because we encountered people, people weren't getting on trains and cars and even getting in wagons and traveling far. Like you can't, like imagine getting in a wagon, man, without shock absorber. You see these old Western movies. In the wagon, it's like the stagecoach is like flying across the plains, right? And you're like, whoa, hang on. Do you know what it'd be like in the stagecoach? Now, obviously, they developed shock absorption to a degree, right? But like these roads, man, you got a road that cuts through all of Nebraska. Like, come on, man. We can't even keep the road down. Like, damn. Like, do you know what that road looked like? You didn't have plows. You didn't make a road. You just chose the best way, man. It's just like, so you watch these old Western movies or something, and you see that, and it's kind of, and it's funny. Like we forget that this stuff life wasn't like that anywhere, but certainly not in the U.S. And so therefore, people weren't traveling very far. So that means if you're going to encounter difference, the indifference is only going to be people within, 5 or 10 or 20 or 30 miles, not very far, if that. for the vast majority of people. So therefore, I mean, I remember when I lived in Ecuador, and I would go. My friend had a farm in this really remote valley. Like, we had to get off the main road, which was only a 2-lane highway. I mean, it wasn't like and then we get either walk or get on a horse, and we'd ride the horse. Let's say usually we'd ride the horse, and we'd ride the horse for about 4 hours. And then we would arrive at this valley where their house was. Well, there were people living in the valley that left once every 3 or 4 years to go to the main market. Like to go to the main city, like 3 or 4 years. They just didn't leave. So anyway, the point being, people, there wasn't racism. It was like ethnocentrism more so, right? It's like, we don't like those people because of, how they wear their hair, which is different than how we wear our hair, or something like that. It was only in the 15th century, 16th century, really, when we saw it in different areas that people would, people developed ideologies around physical differences, but it was really with the advent of chattel slavery that we saw an expansion of a racist ideology, which said, like, hey, these indigenous, these indigenous Indians, the heathens that we discovered, the Europeans discovered in the Americas and different places, they start to develop again, this happened before. This was just much more systematic. And then with the advent or the creation of the African slave trade, then you have a very strong and very clear race-based ideology, because you have to have that in order to enslave somebody else. Like, you have to, you can't just be like, I'm going to go, this person's my equal and I'm going to make them work for me. Like, that's
and it just makes me think, like, if it's possible to other somebody like that within your own in-group, like, so you're saying in-group discrimination that's called ethnocentrism, like the bias of like how your ethnicity should portray itself, or even within the same in-group. But so
the idea of thinking that your ethnicity, your culture, your group is the center of the universe, centrism. You put that at the center. That's the lens through which you see everything and everybody else, and then you go from there.
And then, so you can only imagine what's possible at that time for those that are seeing someone that's completely different than them.
Yeah.
If they're already doing that within, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's kind of wild, right? To think that. All right. Anyway, okay. Benny says that when books became easily available, the elders would warn against reading damaging eyesight. Then it was TV. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, it was like, don't read. I would be told you're reading too much, right? And it's like, or you gotta put more light on. You're gonna ruin your eyes. And then if you're watching too much TV, you're gonna ruin your eyes. Yeah. So, yeah, you're right. So could that be? It's a similar thing with older generations, assuming the younger ones are more fragile. Yeah. Meanwhile, right, all my older relatives, my grandmother's watching TV all day long. It's like, don't watch so much TV. You're going to ruin your eyes. I'm like, what about your eyes, Grandma? Yeah, that's actually a really
that is interesting.
That's a cool comment. That I haven't thought of that. That's what's so cool about life. These kinds of things, people, you need lots of people to participate in a conversation to come up with really interesting ideas. Yeah, that's your work, man. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. Thankful for what you guys created.
Yeah, dude. Okay, Stephen says, does the amount of government tape and health and safety maximizing make people too passive and less aware of what is around them? Yeah, I wonder. I don't know. I think it's different in the UK than in the United States, but that's quite a possibility. Actually, that's actually also a really cool idea. We've become too passive. Yeah, because you just leave it to the government. Well, this is why people who want a much smaller government. This is one of the ideas, of course. You're just making people dependent on the government, and you need to sort of kick people off on their own and make them like, come on, man, you can do it. And if you don't, if you just keep holding people's hands, they'll never do it, whatever the it is, but they'll never do it on their own. So, I mean, that's pretty clear. That doesn't, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure that out. You know,
Right.
you can't coddle your kids. You know, like I sometimes will have these stories here at Penn State of, and I've had it only a couple of times, but you know, colleagues, everybody has stories about they get the phone call from the parent where like the child comes to have a conversation with the professor during office hours. I had this once, and the child brought their parent along, and I'm like, wait, what? You know, there might be a mental health thing, so you know, you don't know. Like the child's like so incredibly anxious or something. You know, like okay, I got that. It's fine. But you know, I said, well, hang on, are we going to talk about grades here? And they're like, yeah, we're going to talk about grades. I'm like, okay, well, your parent, you can't be in the room. I'm not allowed to talk about your, you know, so-and-so's grade with anybody but so-and-so, right? But your child. So, you know, but I have that. That's coddling. Unless, again, there's a mental health thing struggle going on that,
right.
know,
but just like thinking that the parental influence being there will somehow change the course of, like, if it's not about like mental health or that'll like influence the way that you know are treating the student or how you're grading the student.
Yep, for sure. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, Darkwing Duck says the kids seemingly coddled more these days because of the constant news cycle and social media. Yeah, I think there's some of that, and I think that there's just some kind of way that students look.
Does coddling look different now than before? Like, I wonder what coddling looks like.
Yeah, I think it's probably the same, but I have this idea that I looked at these. I was looking at these photos just today or yesterday on some website of what life looked like for kids in the 70s. I should have saved them, right? And it was just these photos of kids just out doing crazy stuff outdoors, right? And even indoors, crazy stuff, right?
Right.
And
what were you seeing? Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, and you know, this shots of like dozen boys and girls on their bicycles, you know, just like jacking it up. You know?
Yeah, living.
No, that to get a bunch of kids together in a room is going to look like this, right? They're going to be doing all sorts of things on their phone. Maybe they're playing video games with people on the other side of the world, but looks like they're not doing anything, and it looks like they're not developing any kind of like sense of self or whatever. Whereas the kids on their bicycles or whatever they're doing, it looks like they're really kicking it, you know. So it looks, I think, a lot also just that the optics as though kids today are really coddled in that way.
Even though like it just might be different, but not
it might be different. And with the constant news cycle and social media and so on, that all that kind of stuff, it just like really hooks people in. But like, because I think when I was a kid, I mean, it was like, look, we got one newspaper in the house. It was the Toledo Blade. It came in the afternoon. I learned to read the newspaper from really a very young age, because my parents always read the newspaper. That was just part of life. So I learned to read it. And as a kid, you know, I started with the comics, and then it was the comics and the sports, and then it was, you know, different things. But I learned that, and so beyond that, there was nothing else, man. I just had to go make something up, and I think that's kind of And so things happen, right? So Darkwing Duck is saying like probably a lot of terrible things happen, but you didn't know about it, so you weren't worried. Yeah, you know, there's nothing to be afraid of. Like same here, I wasn't afraid of anything, you know. And my mom certainly wasn't afraid of me being afraid. I don't know.
Because the lack of media, you're saying, or the lack of like
and partly because
the speed of media, or
I don't know. No, my mom, because I was her fifth child, and she was 45 when I was born, and she's like, "Listen, man, he'll be all right." He doesn't, you know, like
right.
Which is the best thing in the world for me, because I was okay, and I didn't need that fear. And if I would have had a voice of fear anyway, I wouldn't have listened to it because that's just not who I am. You know? All right, man. Questions from today. Eric, from Birthplace of the Constitution. Wait, that's got to be Philadelphia, man. Is the current divide in our nation an example of tribalism? Yeah, definitely. But the tribes are just kind of different, right? So we have our sports tribes. First off, we have our tribes based on our ethnicities, right, and our cultures, which is mostly what it is. Because most tribes, when we think about tribes, two tribes side by side are in some given geographic area. They all have the same physical characteristics. So the European tribes and the tribes in the Americas and tribes in Africa, tribes in Asia, et cetera, et cetera. They look very similar to one another. It's not exactly the same. So, so that's really important. But we still, develop, we have these teams, right? Which is, I guess, kind of what sports is about. It gives us it's a way to continue to activate that tribalism. It's completely meaningless. Like I'm a Phillies fan or I'm a Cleveland Guardians fan or whatever. It's like, why? Why? Like, because other people are. Okay, I want to be part of that tribe. Or I go buy a hat that says, University of Toledo, my alma mater, and I wear that. Right. Okay, like why? And I feel something like, oh, Toledo. Like, why? Because that's part of being
the human experience, right?
Yeah, and the divide is that, right? So you have we're signaling all the time. I'm on the blue team, or I'm on the red team, or I'm on some other team, and you can't end tribalism, and nor should we. We never will end it. So should we end it is not even a question. But we could. Yeah. We probably could tone it down a little.
Right. Like, what does tribalism mean? Like, start to get into, I don't know, or like redefine it, or
when things get, look, for example, when Charlie Kirk was killed, and this Fox News guy, I forget what his name was, but that very evening, he went on air and he said, they killed Charlie Kirk. Like I'm like, dude, who's they? Right? You're creating a tribe, a they tribe. Well, if you're watching Fox, right, you kind of know that who he's talking about, the liberals, the Democrats, right? It's like, dude, tone that shit down, man. That is not what anybody needs right now. And then it wasn't surprising that, I sort of hop on Reddit or I hop on a couple of places, and then people are posting these videos that they're just salivating, like, you killed my hero. And it's like, fuck, dude, tone this down, man. And then you see the other side of the tribe, which would be the people that didn't like him. That tribe, they now come out with all of this. It becomes easy.
Celebratory.
Yeah, the hate toward him. It's easier for them to mock and mimic his death. Like, oh, he was against gun control, and now look what happened to him. Like, I hope it's just like, dudes, this is not the time for that. Like, don't, because you're not reading the tea leaves, and what you're not reading is that this is incredibly divisive. This is really an explosive moment, and you're now ramping stuff up here, right? So the guy on Fox, he's ramping it up there, and you're ramping it up here. And so and these are the tribes. And so, it's should we end it? We should end that kind of stuff for sure, because it's only going to end poorly if we don't. But I don't know that we'll be able to. So, Geronimo Totem Experiment from the Motor City. Wait, is that a username, man? do you think, I love that, man. All right. Do you think the level of critical thinking by the average person has gotten better or fallen in recent history? I think for the most part, it's probably gotten better, to be honest with you. But this is what I would say. I don't know. Like I'm just going to say, but the problem, the level of thinking, the level of kind of education on average. But what you got to remember is if you're watching the media, you got to remember there are a lot of people out there who are, taking their cameras and they're videotaping somebody saying some really stupid things and posting it. And you think, oh my God, the world's going to hell in a handbasket because people out there. There are always a lot of not very thoughtful people out there.
Right.
You didn't see them and you didn't hear from them and maybe you didn't talk to them, or maybe you did. I don't know. But I think that probably the average level of thinking, and I probably, maybe I'm a little alone in this. I don't think so, but I'm going to swim upstream. I think that that's where social media or just the internet and different things, being able to see certain things, has probably moved the needle a little bit in a positive direction. It also backs down because people can only look at the things they want to look at and that kind of stuff. It allows them to find their tribes. If I can't find my tribe in my neighborhood, I can find it here.
Right.
And then, and not only that, but it's harder in my neighborhood. I have to go to the next neighborhood over and say things to the other tribe. Oh, you assholes who live over here. Like, I have to say that to them. Whereas here, I can just get on my phone and say it right there. And so that makes the division so much easier. But anyway, Geronimo Totem Experiment from the Motor City, man. GTE. Probably, I could also say it's actually gotten worse. Critical thinking. Yeah, I could make that argument, but I don't because I need to be positive. Yeah, I have to be, man. Damn. All right. Stephen from the land of tea and biscuits. Stephen says, do you believe the amount of protection and dumbing down of things are making today's use soft? I don't actually. Yeah, I don't. I don't think youth today are any softer than they ever were. Much more, for the most part, I don't really. I think it's very subtle, really. I think there's a coddling if I go to that book. But I think there is. But I think it's very. I don't know. I can read it all, and I can read someone making that argument and go like, yep, I agree with this. I can do that very easily. Be like, yep, makes a lot of sense. You've got the data. You're showing me here, but I'm just not sure that it's true. Yeah. Just not sure that it's true, man. Grace, have you ever heard of Jonathan Haidt's? Yeah, this is the Coddling of the American Mind. That's the book I'm just talking about right there. And I think that I read that book and I'm like, this is absolutely on point, and the data, and it just shows all of it. But I just am not sure that it's how applicable it is to people in their day-to-day lives.
Right.
And I don't think it's just that. I think it's a lot of things that are in place. That what it looks like coddling, but maybe it's not. I don't know. I'd have to put something together to make a really strong argument. I just don't, with my students, people ask this me all the time, what do I see with my students? I do not see much of a change in my students. The biggest change I see in people is that they're more concerned about getting good grades, higher grades than they were in the past. That they start by thinking about the grade more than they did in the past. And there are a lot of things, and they act on it. So, I get emails from people, we get all sorts of things. We have all our assignments, and people are just sending, we just got an email a little bit ago, like, oh, I submitted that assignment and I don't have a grade for it yet. And I'm like, oh God, you couldn't 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you couldn't have, they'd have to come to my office hours and they'd have to say, hey, I don't have that assignment. They're not going to do that. They're just going to sit with it until whatever happens. And so there are just so many more ways in which we allow young people to be anxious about their grades, and we tell them and we focus on it. And college is more expensive. And so, when I was in college, again, I always say it, I could pay for my entire year's tuition by painting houses for 6 weeks in the summertime. So if I flunked the class, it didn't matter, man. It absolutely didn't matter. It matters today, man. Those 3 of those students who were on that sitting on the desk yesterday in class, they're paying over $50,000 to be here at Penn State. In addition to other costs, it's probably close to $60,000. That's a lot of money. And you flunk a class, this is a problem, man. So yeah, I don't just see that. That's the thing that I see that's very, very different. But otherwise, I don't think students they continue to impress me. Yeah. So it doesn't track with mine. But you know what? Here's the other side, especially a lot of professors out there. So Alijah works for an organization called World in Conversation. And it was started by my wife and I, and she now runs it. She's the director, and I'm not part of it. But Alijah is one of the trainers in the organization. And what they do is they select students out to they train them in Alijah, man, can you just say really quickly what you guys do?
Yeah, so we at World in Conversation, Laurie has been developing this model with Sam and called the Thinking Together methodology, which is how do we get those groups that are polarized, and how do we get them to think together? Not to solve problems and despite our differences, but to solve our problems with our differences, in order to build the world together. So it's like building bridges with our enemies. And so we have a methodology where that, with a bunch of factors that includes creating balance in a group where you can build trust and also rapport to the point where we can build solutions together. And where we really emphasize getting the differences of every individual in that group in order to get all of the data on the table. Because if we don't have all of the data from every single voice, then we're missing a piece of the problem. You can't
solve it. If you had 10 people in a room and they all thought exactly the same way, you're not going to fix it.
Not going to get anywhere. Yeah. It's going to be in a loop. And so we have to break that conformity. Like if we have 10 people that all think the same thing, essentially, we need to break that up because they're seeing themselves all as the same when they're unique individuals that definitely have differences. And we need to see.
And so you recruit undergraduate students.
Yep. Yeah. So we recruit undergraduate students from mostly Sam's class because that's where all of the students are coming from to participate in these dialogues. And then it used to be Sam's class as well as other classes, but in the recent, years, it's been more so the cohort from Sam's class.
Yeah, we've been forced to downsize for funding reasons, but right now you're working on regaining some funding and building it back up.
Yeah.
At one point, we were doing 3,000 dialogues a year. 3,000 a year, man. It was the largest organization of its kind in the world. Anywhere at a university. Amazing. 3,000 with these undergraduate students who learned this facilitation method and have now gone out. We have over 1,000 trained facilitators that are out around the world doing amazing things. And as you were 10 years ago, man. You're sitting in the classroom.
Man, I'm honored to be here. And like everyone, all the alumni that I've called, just brave. And they're just like, how's Sam? How's Laurie? And just they're like, I use the skills that I've learned 15, 20 years ago every day,
Yeah.
I feel like this is cool. I feel like this is an okay time to push. If you guys want to support this channel, all of the money that we raise here goes to World in Conversation so that we can continue these dialogues. And 200 Watt Studio today during our live stream donated $5 in a super chat. And they said, really appreciate what you do at Social 19. People need to understand each other and really listen, understand what people really feel and why. So we appreciate that super chat. And you can always go !join and you can become a member. And yeah, whenever I finish videos and upload them, you'll get them first before anybody else.
Yeah, it really is. It's all World in Conversation. We're both wearing the shirts, man. Yeah. Notice the planet, the quotation marks around the planet. So
I wonder how you guys came up with that.
Conversation. Yeah, so it's cool.
Do you remember how you? Okay, yeah.
So wait, why did I get on that? Why did we go? Wait, how's it? Oh, I know how it is. Okay, so this is going back to Grace. So Grace, here's the thing. There are a lot of professors that teach, they have a class of 30 or 40, or maybe they have a class. Some people have a class of 100. I don't know, lecture hall, whatever. Okay, I have 800 students, right? And but here's the thing about Laurie and I in our work is we're talking to students about the details of their lives and their thoughts and how they see the world. Students who are part of the World in Conversation team and the Social 19 team from all over the world and from every background you can imagine here in the United States. Okay. So, and this has been going on for 30 years. So like when I make a statement about when I weigh in about, hey, how have students changed over 30 years? I've been in deep, my wife, Laurie, and I, and along with people like Elijah, who then we're working with every day, have been in deep conversation with students, so many different students every day for 30 years. And a lot of times you'll ask professors, oh, how are students? Well, they can only really comment on their class. And no, we can only comment on Penn State, obviously, because Penn State's not every university, but it's like we've been able to see certain things that a lot of professors don't see just because of the nature of the roles that we play and how we operate and the number of people that work for us and with whom we're in conversation every single day. So anyway, that's a thought on that. That's not to say my ideas are better or Laurie's ideas or Elijah's, but
there's just an insight that based on the nature of this work that you're receiving and that we're receiving that other professors aren't, because there's no the basis is understanding the lives of the students and sociological address and getting deeper than just their answer to a question.
Or somebody comes to you in office hours, and every week 3 students come to office hours, and you got to build your assessment of how students are doing from those 3 students or things that your colleagues report. Whereas we're building an assessment of student life for the past 30 years by, every single day, deep conversations with thousands and thousands and thousands of students. So, and many of whom we get very close with, like Elijah, we're working with every single day. So we really know, even though you're not a student anymore, but well, you are now because you're taking a graduate course, but still, it's different. So anyway, all right.
Thank you to Hog Wild for the €5. For the 5 British pounds. Not the euro.
British pounds. Thanks, man. Hog Wild. We're getting hog wild on the stream. Hey, Kenji, we say hi back to you, man. Tell Kenji we say hi. All right. When it comes to having political discussions, how do we have them with family when there are major disagreements? Well, first you look at what I do is I just look at the ways in which I start with assuming I'm wrong about something. I start with that when things are really intense. So I start with something I'm wrong. I'm missing something here. So I begin there, and that makes it a lot easier. But in this case, but then you got to go to just really, what am I missing? What am I not seeing? right? This is the empathy thing. So empathy is getting a real bad rap these days. My God, empathy is the worst thing that ever happened. It's like, no, it's not. Empathy is just trying to see the world from the eyes of somebody else, man. It's cool. It's what sociology is, man. Empathy is cool. Empathy isn't like see the world through somebody else's eyes and then deny your own reality and become who they are. Empathy is like, wait, let me try to be, not only let me see it through your eyes, let me actually stand in your shoes. Let me try to feel what you're feeling. And then if I can do that, oh shit, man, that's really cool. Like I can get outside of who I am and I can be there. And one of the reasons that I think I'm really good at what I do, I think one of the things that I am good at, let me say it that way. One thing I'm really good at is empathizing. Like I can be, man, I have a student in a wheelchair, let's say, and I'm like, I just put myself, I talk to that person, I get a sense of who they are and I feel their energy and their thinking and their this and that. And I go and I make the connections in which they're the same as I am. And when I was the age of that person, okay, that's how I felt. And I make all the connections. And then I just figuratively put myself in the wheelchair and I can do it. For some reason, I can do that. And then once I do that, then they become, there's no like, sadness, there's no like shit, there's no like, oh, that poor whatever. I become them, and that means everything, the good, the bad, the this, the that, and I'm there, and then I'm feeling certain things, and I'm like, oh, once I get that, I'm like, I got it. And no, it's not exactly what they're feeling, but I will tell you, man, over the years I've gotten pretty good at mirroring feelings with people. And then I'm like, and that's how I can treat everybody.
Yeah.
I have fun with everybody.
It's so cool because it like takes you away from like, probably pitfalls like tokenizing somebody or like,
totally, dude.
Those types of things. Like that's so powerful,
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And no, listen, man, it is like, it's just, it's really just awesome. So anyway, that's my take. Hang on, I was going to look at something here really fast. All right. So anyway, it was like, for example, last week or 2 weeks ago when I introduced Dela in class, before class. And Dela is my TA from Iran, and her grandmother watches the class, right? Like
sweet. So
I know her grandmother. Like I don't know her grandmother, I haven't met, but she's in Iran. But I know her grandmother because I know Iranians, and I know grandmothers who are in the Middle East, grandmothers who are Muslim, grandmothers in Iran. I've met a few grandmothers. Like I just know, like I'm there, right? And so like when I was having that interaction with her and talking to her grandmother, I'm empathizing with her grandmother. Like I'm there, like I'm in your shoes. I'm seeing it. I'm feeling it. There's nothing weird about it because I'm there. I'm in your world and I'm seeing what you're seeing. And it's not exact, but it's pretty cool for me because it means that I get to live inside. I get to have the experience of living inside of some of their lives in certain ways. So anyway, so for instance, there's a family member, this is going back to Tornado from the KC Metro. There's a family member who is LGBT plus and another who is traditionally religious. Well, I'm going to go into the mind of the traditionally religious one, and I'm just going to try to see what they see, all of the different things. And then I'm going to go into the queer family member, and I'm gonna say like, I'm just gonna like, well, what's the you could just completely, it doesn't really matter, just embrace. I've known people who just are like, my grandmother's so or my father, my mother, or my whoever, my uncle, so traditionally religious and just has such a hard time with anything LGBT or whatever, but it's okay, like that and that person just finds a way to not struggle with that uncle.
Right.
I'm like, dude, it's just, yep, there you go, man.
Mhm.
That's how you do it.
And what I'm hearing about like the power of empathy is like from you is how it helps you think about things practically.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
instead of it removes all of the potential bias that would come from if you were thinking only in your shoes, and you can actually
Totally.
think about it.
Yeah,
So
totally, man.
powerful.
No,
Like-
totally, man. No, you just go to different shoes. By the way, Ian from Ian says from Casey, do social subjects lead to a career? If not, why explore them? Like sociological subjects. Yeah, for sure. And not only that, but they do. And there's so many things. If you think about life, right? Like all of the different levels of social services that human beings are participating in, that are doing. Like in sociology, for example, people can get pretty good at thinking about other groups and other people, and you're sort of trained to learn about other people. Well, that's perfect to be doing social service work somewhere. Maybe it's a hospital intake work or whatever it is. It doesn't really matter. But we need that, right? We need people who can just see people for who they are. And we need other people who just do their jobs and they're not thinking about it. Just run your engineering firm and do your accounting, do your this, do your that, and don't worry about these other things. I mean, do them, but you know what I mean? But it's not, it's just, just get your numbers right. When you're building that bridge, damn it, don't mess up your numbers. Because you're busy thinking about some sociology, I don't know, whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So Axel in Germany says, do I have a memory of when a student asked a genius question that made you stop and think deeply? I have had that so many times, and I wish I now need to just remember to stop and write it down. But I have had that so many times when I just stop and go, whoa. I don't know. Yeah.
You said you kind of had that yesterday.
A little bit yesterday with the one Korean woman, and I had to go back and look at the tape, which she said something. It was like the opposite of what I thought she was going to say. And then I went, whoa, hang on, if that's true. And then she continued talking, and my mind was going like, whoa, damn. And then I thought, I got to go back to the transcript because I got to remember what that was. Or I'll just ask her tomorrow in class. What was it that she said? Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, Axel, I'm going to I'll remember next time. What topics in sociology do you guys think are the most interesting? Elijah, do you have an answer to that question?
What topics in sociology do I think are the most interesting?
This is Wilhelm.
And that's so hard because I don't even know like what to define as topics sometimes. Like in the moment. Like I'm sure there's something, but I can't even name like a topic. For example.
For me, I always go back to like my favorite classes. The favorite topics we talk about are with our international partners, with like conflict reconciliation. I'm thinking of David from Northern Ireland, and I mean Julie in Colombia, and just all of the people who have gone through things, have seen things that in the United States we talk a big game about, but we haven't seen it in over 100 years of actual Civil War conflict, something dramatic that. So for me, seeing it from their perspective on how we can avoid that is one of my favorites.
Well, dude, then you're in luck because we're gonna have a class on that.
Yeah, I know.
So, yeah, I think for me, the one thing that I'm really fascinated by there's so many things.
I know now.
Wait, you got one?
Yeah, like my favorite is like the classes where I mean, the one where you have the one Asian student and the American student and the differences of how they respond to things based on the culture that
East versus
them.
West.
I find that so fascinating. Those types of like the ways that we're shaped. is just so intriguing, and how that changes the way we think and talk, and or respond. So fascinating to me.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I think for me, there's something in religion for me, how people as a group, so to respond with topics in sociology in general, I think there's something about how people come to conceptualize the creation itself and the unknown and God, or whatever they call it, but how people do that in groups, and how they come to terms with that, something that's so incredibly complicated, and how they find a way to find other people who will be kind of similar to them, and how they manage it. You lock onto a religion or whatever, right? But then you do or don't ask the deeper existential questions, which is, you just sort of flow through, right? I'm Catholic, right? And I go to mass, and I cross myself, or I'm Muslim, and I go do my prayers, and
right.
but how we do that, and how we're able to do that without asking the deeper questions about, wait, what is all this, and what's it mean? That, to me, as a sociologist, is always just kind of just banged away at my curiosity.
Right, like this passive acceptance, in a way.
Yeah, but it doesn't
not
come
exactly
across
passive.
as passive acceptance, and I wouldn't even call it that. But in a way, it's what it is. But yeah, just how we manage that, how we manage the unknown. And it's simple on one hand, but I think I'm peeling the onion back several layers and saying, no, my curiosity gets piqued at a deeper level. So I would say that is the most interesting thing, man. Yeah. So great. So Grace says, are you going to be on Sebasi Talks? Actually, I'm doing a Sebasi talk in a few weeks. So yes, the answer is I will be in Incheon. Yeah. So I will do that. Grace, if you're in Korea, I will see you there. Make sure I see you, or reach out to me. I'll make sure. All right. Paul says, any thoughts on the relationship of the Chaebol's economic dominance on Korean society? Yeah. It's pretty amazing. It's fascinating how the Korean society emerged with so much power and force, really largely because of the Chaebols. And the Chaebols are these large conglomerate, large corporations that are multifaceted. So, like Hyundai, for example, or Samsung, you have the idea like, oh, Hyundai makes cars. It's like, no, Hyundai, yeah, sure, they make cars, but they build elevators. They make bridges. They make this. They do that. There's so many dimensions of Hyundai. So these are the Chaebols, and they operate in some ways as families, and it fits. It works within Korean society in such a powerful way, and it's what has allowed Korea to just prosper in the past 6 decades. And I don't use AI, by the way. I do use AI when I'm looking something up, but I don't use it to write for me or anything like that. But I'm currently in the market. I'm currently thinking that I need to better understand AI. I want to use it more. I want to really have a deeper understanding of it. So, yeah.
Before we get to the next thing, Grace said that she is American and lives in the U.S., so she won't be there, but is very happy that you're going to be doing those talks. Kelvin R. with another $5. As a psych major, I appreciate how you tackle questions, and I love how the kids form their answers and share their ideas and perspectives. Thanks so much.
Oh, awesome, man. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so Flop Whopper. Hang on, that's a Dutch thing, man. Floppe Whopper or something. I don't know what that is. I study history at Utrecht. Yep. I was curious about how important is historical knowledge for sociology. You know what? It can, for so many sociologists, it's not important at all, because you just look. What we're doing in the world of sociology is we're trying to understand how invisible factors and forces in society shape collective behavior. Okay, so we just want to understand that. And so some of the forces are not so invisible. The most interesting stuff is the invisible forces. But other things would be like, okay, how does having a college education impact people's behavior? So we know, like, we can think of it in the most simplistic way, but go a little deeper. Just keep going deeper, deeper, deeper. Maybe there's some things about college educated people that aren't obvious in a way, and it's not even obvious to them. So you want to try to find the most interesting stuff in sociology is the invisible forces, and that's why, like, I'm always giving the example of suicide, right? It's just that, why is it that the suicide rate remains stable over time, year after year after year in any given society, very stable, surprisingly stable. It's like, wait, how? That means society is structured in some way that leads more or less the same number of people to take their own lives year after year. Like, how is that possible? How is that possible? Right?
Like society as a whole, like even in different countries and like
the murder rate
society
doesn't change, right? How's the murder rate not change? Why isn't one year we have 100,000 murders in the U.S. and the next year we have 20,000? Like, why is that? What are all the factors and forces at play in human social life that leads to similar behavior year after year, right? That's what sociology is. It's like this collective behavior. So, that's so you don't need history for that, but some of us, but history can be really, really useful when you bring it into analyses like that, because you're going to want to understand, like, well, hang on, what was it like 50 years ago? I'm not going to know the murder rate, for example, if I'm not understanding things 50 years ago. Then if I study that, it's going to help me understand what's going on today. So for me, history is essential, but for, depends on what you're doing. For a lot of people, I suppose it's not. All right, man, there we go. That's it. And it's now going on 5:00. So
yeah, there were some more questions that came in, but those were the ones.
And what Grace just wrote in the chat, I think, like, it's like history. Yeah, it's like you want to try to understand the influence, and
I realized
so many different factors.
I realized I was talking to the chat and I didn't talk to you. I had myself muted on Discord. Those are all the questions we have. There are more that came in, but it is almost 5:00. I did just want to share some local news that just came up. It's now officially hit like the big headlines. There was 5 officers were involved in a shooting today in a county close to me. So anybody in the southern Pennsylvania area, just put your hearts out to the York County Police Department and all of them, because what the heck. Like, there's no information about it. I know that the local schools were put on lockdown, but it wasn't involved in a school. They just wanted nothing to no students to leave until later.
This is why it's so unsettling. But this is why people are even afraid to come to the United States, even though it's sad. God bless it, man. What? I don't know, man. I don't know. I just don't understand. I mean, it's hard. I don't understand. I have so much to say. I don't know. All right, man. Well, with that, we'll just
be well, everybody.
We do have a new, okay. We have a class tomorrow is actually, I think, going to be really interesting. I'm quite looking for, it's going to be really interesting, and I'm really quite looking forward to it. So it's going to be very more similar to office hours. And so,
okay.
Yeah, we got a special guest coming. It's going to be really, I think, very, very cool. So
stay tuned for that.
All right, man. All right, y'all. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. And Jeff, thanks for holding things down on the back end. Elijah, thanks for holding things down on the front end. And
thank you.
I'm going to go eat some Iraqi food right now. We have a new Iraqi restaurant in town.
Where? Where's it at?
On East College Avenue, or West College. No, East College F.
Okay, I'm
We'll
gonna
let
have
you
to
know
check that
how it
out.
is.
Yeah, I'll want some of that.
Yeah, that's the beauty of international movement, right? That's really the beauty of diversity and multiculturalism and so on. Yeah, I like Pennsylvania food, whatever, but I just want to experience the world. So, whatever. I don't want to have to go back to Iraq to get Iraqi food. So
Laurie's been telling me about some of those experiences
dude, it was crazy.
with food.
Yeah. It was really, all right, man. Okay, thanks. Hey, Vibe Tornado Gameplay. Yeah, you're welcome, man. Yeah, you're good. Thanks, man. Introduce yourself when you get a chance. All right. Okay, we'll talk to you. See you, everybody. I'm out.